This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the NSA Professional Services Series webinar. This is the number 56 in our series of webinar sessions today. Today, we actually have one of our great vendors, Conexiom, that'll be joining us to do the presentation. The Conexiom solution is all about harnessing AI to deliver a better order fulfillment experience for both the customer as well as the organization itself. Very high return on investment with this solution, as well as a greater customer experience. So these are the topics that we'll be covering today. There's going to be a market research element that we'll be going over in terms of what businesses say are most important, especially in the distribution market. The 5 keys to meeting new customer expectations, which of course are changing due to the way that people are used to entering orders and navigating on websites and so forth, and lessons learned from other distributors who've made this particular transformation. We'll also have a demonstration of the solution today as part of the effort. And my name is Brian Weaver. I'm the VP of Sales here at NSA. And with great pleasure, I'd like to welcome our presenters. So we have Alex and James. So they'll be kind of dueling it here. Alex will be covering most of the PowerPoint deck, and then James will be conducting the actual demonstration for us today. So gentlemen, please take it away.
Awesome. So just a quick back of the baseball card stats. My name is Alex Witz-Pollock, Vice President of Sales and Business Development for Conexiom. I've spent the last 12 years in distribution manufacturing. I love this market. Maybe that makes me a glutton for punishment, but distribution, I think the people are great. But I also think there's a large opportunity for digital transformation and to move these businesses forward, to really be more efficient, to attract the next wave of talent, and to make a more tight, streamlined supply chain. Back in 2018, I was awarded 40 under 40 by Distribution Trends magazine, and don't ever intend on leaving this market, serving a different market through technology. James?
James Exley. I lead up our sales engineering unit at Conexiom. So, been with Conexiom for around 5 years now. Similar passions to Alex, not 40 under 40, but we have similar passions. Looking forward to showing you Conexiom and what it can bring for you.
Awesome. So as we talked about today, we're going to be talking about how can we compete and really outplay the Amazon type of experience, specifically in distribution, and some of the pressures that are on distribution businesses today is really the concept of what we call disintermediation. And I was reading a report by McKinsey, and I'm a state school educated individual. And so I had to go look up, hey, I think I understand, but what is disintermediation? And what we're seeing across the world is a vast amount of disintermediation, and it's really cutting out the middleman, right? And so if you look at what's happening in the cryptocurrency market, what are they doing? They're trying to get rid of the banking, cut out the banking system, peer-to-peer finance movement. If you really look at what Amazon is really disintermediating the middleman. And so we're seeing more and more ways to try to get rid of the middle pocket here. But as we know, distributors provide so much value, more than a transaction. But we're seeing this consolidation happen, as you are all very well aware of. And so right now, as an industry, we need to be supremely focused on how do we provide more increased value to our customers, more than a transaction? How do we focus on customer experience so that we continue to stay relevant? The amount of mergers and acquisitions that are happening in this market, as you are all aware of, is rampant and continuing to speed up, is because it's so hard to compete as companies scale, right? And just to compete on customer experience, to compete on the systems that exist. And so what we focus on as a business and what we're maniacal about is really process automation. How do we automate mundane tasks inside of a distribution organization so that we can free up our people, highly valuable individuals, to focus on higher value activities. And one of the challenges that the industry is up against is obviously, as we all know, the labor challenge, right? And get someone in out of college to get fired up to go do AP entry or order entry, well, it's not hard. It's not easy to get them excited about that. And so what we look at is a very micro activity of order entry or vendor order acknowledgement entry or AP invoice entry. And I think it's very easy to look at this as kind of like an operational function, right? If you look at like it's down at the level with the CSRs and AP staff member, and when us as executives are in a room, what are we talking about? Well, it's not about data entry, right? We're talking about how do we drive customer experience? How do we get product out the door quicker? How do we sell the full market basket? What markets should we be penetrating where we're maybe under penetrated? And so there's a disconnect between the two. But what's interesting is they're inextricably linked, right? Because every activity that your team is spending in front of a computer screen is taking away from them aligning and driving these goals and initiatives that we talk about in the boardroom. And these topics around customer experience, strengthening vendor relationships, all directly tied to how we can free our people up to go execute on these things. So what we did as a business, because we're maniacal about really understanding our customer and understanding how a distributor extracts value and provides that to their customers. So we did an analysis of about 900 distribution and manufacturing companies across various different verticals, across various different revenue band segments. I'm not going to take you through all the data here, but here you can actually see that some of these verticals probably match where you sit when you look at like construction, that actually HVAC sat underneath that. So automotive, food and beverage, and then the revenue bands and the functions within the business that we actually interviewed as a part of this study in partnership with a company called Thrive, our consulting company. And so when we do this analysis, we said, hey, what are the number one goals for you in 2024? This is rounding out 23. What are the biggest goals that are going to set you apart from either your main competitors or Amazon? And the results are, I would say, maybe it's not astonishing, but what is interesting is that the number one, by far and away, across both distribution and manufacturing companies, the number one goal and priority is customer experience in NPS, right? And so that validates a lot of what we had thought about is, how do you provide value? And it's really around, that experience. And sometimes experience is tough to, it's like a hard to quantify number, right? You could maybe do some NPS scores, right? So you actually send out an NPS survey to your customers and get that and try to track the results over time. But in a lot of ways, it's very difficult to actually track that. So what we find is we need to first, if that's where we're focused, we need to try to eliminate the barriers that are keeping us from driving that customer experience, the activities that will help drive that. And as you go down through the survey and the study, you can see obviously on time and full orders is a goal, which is you move down this incremental sales, digital transformation, efficiency and labor savings, employee staffing engagement. What's interesting is I actually think you could sum all of these same topics driving towards the same ultimate goal of customer experience, right? Why do you want perfect orders? Well, yes, it's definitely more profitable, right? Because you don't have to go repick, reship. But it's ultimately because if you continuously have on time and in full orders, you're driving customer experience. Incremental sales, well, you're providing a value to your customer. Digital transformation, well, if there's no ROI and it doesn't help the customer experience, digital transformation doesn't mean much. So what's interesting is the theme in here is it all drives back to the customer experience. Now, when we did the survey, kind of zeroing in on the CSR group, and today we're going to focus much of our time on the sales order entry and the automation of that piece. Even though Conexiom is a platform that can automate accounts payable, vendor order acknowledgements, and 13 other use cases. We're going to focus a lot of our time today on the CSR function and some of the studies that we found and the way that we view the world in the CSR group. When we did the analysis of, hey, where are people spending their time in the CSR function? A lot of time spent on troubleshooting, communicating updates. Maybe it's updates on returns, updates on product delivery, but a fourth of their time is spent on data entry, and another fourth on recommending relevant products. Okay, if we look at where is there no value really to the customer, right? Troubleshooting, we need to do that to provide value. Communicating updates, maybe there's a better mousetrap to communicate these updates. Recommending products, maybe there's tools to help aid in that. But I don't think we've ever heard a customer say, man, my distributor is so good at entering my order, right? I mean, maybe you say, hey, I don't have any errors, but they don't say, because they hand key these orders manually, man, that's why I like to do business with them, right? And quite frankly, they might be saying, that's actually creating downstream impacts for me. So when you look at kind of the Amazons of the world, obviously some distributors, e-commerce is not taking it off at the same rate because they serve a different segment of the market. But what you can't ignore, right? So let's say e-commerce doesn't fit for this customer. They'll just continue to send their orders in via email. That's how they want to do it. Or you have customers set up on EDI. When transactions are happening digitally, right? So either EDI or e-commerce or Conexiom, let's say you don't have an automation tool to automate your orders today. There's a 5% lower fill rate on manual orders than there is digital orders across EDI, e-commerce versus manual, right? So the fill rate actually goes up when you move manual transactions to digital transactions. And that has to do with accuracy, has to do with speed, and it all plays back to the original concept of driving back to customer experience. What's also interesting is when you look at the cost of errors when it comes to manual order processing. So the average cost per error is $5,000, right? And that's the cost that we can actually quantify, right? So that's the cost of repicking, repacking, reshipping the appropriate item, shipping in the item that was incorrectly sent, and correcting the order. That's the cost we can quantify. What we can't quantify in errors on data entry is we can't quantify the downstream impacts. The best example I can say is if I go to a restaurant and my food comes out wrong, well, we can quantify the cost of them having to remake the food, the cost of throwing out that food that they did make. That's all quantifiable. What's unquantifiable is when I leave that restaurant with my family and I go tell my neighbor about that, or I decide just without saying anything, I'm not going back to that restaurant. That's the same challenge that exists with manual order entry and the challenges of error rates that happen on that. And we find when orders are digital, there's actually a 7% lower error rate on those orders, same orders. So when we look at the Amazon effect, there's 5 key things that customers are looking for, and really consumer behavior has changed, right? They're looking for immediate order acknowledgement. How do I get this acknowledgement back knowing that you got this order? I know I sent this order in with an acknowledgement or this order in via email, but I still want an acknowledgement immediately. 2, they want same day shipping. How can we go fulfill that order and fulfill it now? 3, they want order accuracy, right? It just needs to be accurate. It's the expectation of today. And 4, they want relevant recommendations of outcomes. What should they be buying that they're not, right? And being able to provide that in a seamless customer experience that doesn't force me to change the way I buy from you. And so today what we're going to get into is actually a demonstration of showing you how we can bring a gap to your current order entry process and getting into a demo. So if you think of the 3 legs of the stool inside of your business, we look at it like this. You have e-commerce, right? Which maybe you're at 10, 15, 20, maybe 25% adoption on e-commerce of order percentages. You have EDI for your high volume customers that maybe say, okay, they're on EDI, we went and did a project. But you have this middle layer of customers that likely don't want to change. They're going to continue to send you a PO because they have to create a PO in their system. So they won't go to e-commerce because that would be duplicate entry. But how can we automate them and deliver a similar customer experience as if they would have placed this order on e-commerce without forcing them to change? And that's ultimately, when it comes to the order side of what we solve, that is what we are maniacal about solving. And how we do that, well, it's not simple, right? There are over 20 different data transformations that will need to happen around data points on a purchase order, let alone the fact that a purchase order may look the same at the same customer to you and I, but actually every single document has a slight shift and variation. Today there's line level notes, tomorrow there's not. One day they have one carrier type and the way they want it ordered. The next day there's a note that says I need this next day air down in the notes section. Could be at the line level. All of these data transformations and scenarios that you have a human working through today need to be injected in whatever technology you have automating these purchase orders. And so if you look here as just an example, you can actually see some of the transformations that Conexiom makes for other NSA customers today. So for example, maybe we're missing a part number. Should we be looking at a description from that, and can we deduce anything from there? Does the price match what they should be buying? Are they ordering with the right unit of measure? Going back to line level notes, how do we handle those? Maybe it's a drop ship order. Right? I actually want this drop shipped directly to my customer, and that could be at the line level. These are the things that made the industry think, well, this is an unautomatable process, right? You're dealing with an unstructured document in ways that customers are continuing to change data points on this document. So a lot of companies have thought, well, at best we could extract the data and require humans to still manipulate the data. And the way we look at that is that's actually fractional time savings. All we've done is said, okay, hey, we're going to get rid of the keystrokes, but you still have to think through every single one of these PDF orders. That's not ultimately fundamentally changing the role of a CSR. To change the role of a CSR, to focus on the executive level boardroom goals and priorities, we need to shift what the role looks like, which means get them out of the order entry process altogether. And so we do this for many customers. If we look inside of the NSA portfolio, you can think of Johnstone Supply, you can think about RS Hughes, Hisco Industries, but many different companies across different verticals and markets solving anywhere in their business. They have humans hand keying data off of a document. And the more business logic that they have to do, the more value that we can provide, because we are the company that can solve complex business logic and rules. So if you look at specific to the Infor marketplace, here's just a handful of other companies that I didn't mention that we're currently helping solve this problem for today. So getting into the actual details of how this works, I'm going to pass it over to James, who's going to go through kind of the how the product works, and then we're going to dive into a demonstration so we can actually show you the platform today.
Sounds good. Yeah, so essentially what I want to do first is just kind of walk you through this slide, which is going to give you a good idea of how Conexiom works. And then after that, I'll show that in a demonstration. But fundamentally, there's 5 steps to getting an order into Infor. The first thing is obviously receiving the purchase orders that come from your customers. We're not going to have them change the way they do business with you today. They're going to send you a PO via email like they do today. It's then going to get forwarded to Conexiom from your mailbox. And there's going to be a kind of a middle ground of where some of those customers that are your highest volume, that have a lot of touches that you have to apply today, we may go through a model of building out a template for one of those, or for those kind of lower volume customers that you have, we may apply AI and machine learning to those documents to just extract the data from those documents and push it into Info. Once we've extracted the data from those documents, we can do validations and transformations on those documents. So really looking at the data we've got on the PO, making sure that, as Alex alluded to earlier, right, is the price right? Is it a valid part number inside Info? Is it a new ship to address that we need to add into Info? If there's a true exception, so something that a CSR should be looking at, not everything that they should be looking at, they can go fix it. They can add a part number. They can look at a price exception. They can maybe perform a substitution for an item that's not in inventory. And once they've done that, then that order would be pushed to Info, and that happens in around 30 seconds. So to demonstrate that to you today, I'm going to share my screen. And you should now see a Conexiom dashboard. So first thing I'm going to walk you through today is the templatized approach with Conexiom, which is going to take inbound POs from your highest volume customers, ones that Conexiom have seen before, and they're going to be sending you an email like they do today. They're going to send a PDF that's attached to it. It could have one line, it could have 50 lines within it, and it's going to get sent to you. What happens once it gets sent to you, to your mailbox, it's going to get forwarded from your mailbox to Conexiom. It would then come into the Conexiom portal where it would start processing. Conexiom would identify as to whether it's a customer that we built a template for or a customer that we haven't. If we haven't, we would apply the AI machine learning to that extraction. If it is, we would pull from the template that we built for that specific customer. Once we've done that, we'd extract the data and perform any validations we need to it. So, as I said before, part number, price, ship to address, etc. If it's good, like this one would be, it would essentially push to documents complete that you have here and create an order inside Info. And what happens there is, and you can see on the right hand side of the screen, we would have the original PDF from the customer, and then on the left hand side of the screen we have an order that's being created inside CSD, and all this happens within 30 seconds or so. The second piece of the demonstration is really around what happens when there is an exception, so something like a price or a part number or whatever it might be. When an order is sent to Conexiom, we would extract the data like we did before, but if there's an exception, we're going to create an alert that can be inside the Conexiom portal for someone to take a look at. That could also be sent via an email to a CSR or whoever may be managing these alerts, and this would direct them back to the Conexiom portal to perform remediation to the documents. So if you click on the specific alert, it's going to take you to that alert, and then on the left hand side of the screen inside the Conexiom portal, you're going to see the original document, and then on the right hand side of the screen you're going to see the extracted data, and within that extracted data you're going to see what Conexiom seems as correct, highlighted in green, what Conexiom seems as incorrect, so that stuff that's highlighted in red, and then in blue is just letting me know that, hey, this is a part number that may not be one of yours, but it may be the supplier part number that's been leveraged to create an order. So at this point, once you have the Conexiom portal and you can see the exceptions, if I was to click on the first line, the quantity 11, at the top right hand side of the screen, you'll see the quantity must be greater than 15. So just bringing your attention to information that needs to be updated, or maybe that would entail a CSR to actually make a manual update. These exceptions can be configured in a way that would mirror your customer service today, and so can be built out to make sure it fits you. So at this point, they can click update to 15. It's going to update the screen to to green. If I scroll down to the second line, we'll see it's a price exception. I can see that now it should be $3.40, not $4 because they're ordering over a certain amount. I can fix that. And then I can also see on line 3 that there's a part number that needs someone's attention. They can go add that part number to a cross-reference, meaning that Connexiom can remember that for next time and process the order. So Connexiom not just extracting the data, but can also remember fixes from the exception manager tool that we're looking at here. So you would have less exceptions the more orders that you flow through Connexiom. So at this point, once I've successfully approved that document, it would then send that order to CSD. The third thing I wanted to go through with you today was the AI and machine learning portion of Connexiom. And that's really where we're processing documents for customers that haven't been onboarded to Connexiom, and we're leveraging that AI to be able to extract the data. I have a document that I sent through to Connexiom, and this is just representative of a customer PO that you would see today. A lot of it's going to be around a clear text PDF document where I can essentially copy and paste the data from the document, which gives the ability of Connexiom to extract the data with 100% accuracy without having any person need to validate the data we've extracted. It's just letting us know that the data is going in the right spot inside the ERP. So with that being said, I forwarded this a little bit earlier. If I jump into the Connexiom portal, I can click on my alerts. I can then open up that alert notification. This looks a little bit different to the screen that we just saw, but essentially is what he is doing is just telling us, hey, we saw this document come from ABC International. It's not a custom we've seen before, but we've used AI to extract the data. And when I say AI, we're leveraging, I think we've processed 94 million documents or sales orders through Connexiom in the past, and we're leveraging that information where we've built these maps previously to then enable Connexiom to know where we should pull the PO number from, where we should pull the bill to from, where we should pull the line information from. So
I'll just say one other data point on this, right? So if you have any sort of document automation platform that is not catered and specific to this industry, the challenge is they don't know the data points on a PO versus an invoice. Like take like your invoice on the AP side. Like, is it a vendor like freight invoice? Is it an actual three-way match type invoice? And so you have to have experience with like these types of documents. And obviously everyone at this point knows the more data you have, it's just like the rich get richer when you're sitting on a ton of data when it comes to AI. But the other critical piece is understanding which AI to use where. So for example, would you use a large language model AI to try to validate price? No, that wouldn't make sense, right? But you would potentially use it in the bill to and ship tos, right? To understand and try to decode what that is, and then using a neural AI component to be able to understand the document format and layout and the different table structures. So one of the key components is there's two key components. One is having the volume of data to train your models, and two is having the industry understanding on a vertical of distribution manufacturing to have the at-bats to know which AI models to apply to which parts of a document. Sorry, just wanted to kind of articulate some of that.
No, thanks, Alex. That makes sense. So within the portal, the user really just has to make a couple of tweaks to the document. We're not asking the user to do the full order entry like they've been doing today. They're essentially going to tell Connexiom, hey, this partner, their sold to ID is 999, for example. it would then allow that to update within Conexiom to that specific sold to ID, remembering that for next time. So for this specific customer, we would know we'd need to leverage the sold to 999 for this specific template moving forward. Once doing that, it's going to ask you and say, hey, what's the ship to address? It's not something we've seen before. What's the ID that we should associate with it? And you could give that an ID, and then same thing for the bill to. So just telling us, hey, we just need the company ID, the ship to ID, and the bill to ID. Once we have that information, Conexiom can create a valid order for that specific customer with inside info. If I was to pull up the line items, it will give you a visual of, hey, Conexiom extracted the buyer part number from here. We extracted the description from here. So if you guys have seen other AI intuitive data extraction tools that are kind of leveraging maybe an intelligent data capture or whatever it might be, a lot of them will struggle to extract data that's within the same data box because it wouldn't know where to split the part number from the description. It wouldn't know, for example, that, hey, the part number's in the same box as the description. We'd be looking earlier on in the line to extract the data because that's just what their model's kind of built upon. But given the kind of what Alex spoke to before, given just the true volume that's gone through Conexiom and the kind of the model we used to build it, we've gone through that and seen it before. So we know where we should be pulling the data from on a first pass, making sure that you'd have to do less and less edits to a document that you've pulled through Conexiom. So that's what I wanted to go through as part of a demonstration today. I can stop sharing and give it back to Alex.
I think before we move on, let's see if there's any questions from a product standpoint or the company in general.
Yeah, folks, so please enter any questions that you have into the chat area, and we'll make sure the team is able to address them. Alex, I do think we do have, let's see, a couple of questions here. So let me start with one or two. Can you speak to any recent use cases where you've worked with NSA to integrate or onboard a client?
Yeah, I think the most recent was the accounts payable project over at Porter Pipe that we did. One of the biggest challenges, and many people have this, right? But when you start to deal with drop ship invoices and you're having to manage those manually, um, if you're behind on invoice processing, every day you don't process an invoice that's a direct ship invoice is every day that you don't get an invoice out to your customer. And so if you're, let's say, 2 weeks behind on invoice processing, well, that means you're also 2 weeks behind on getting invoices out to your customers, which then has a downstream impact of you could be collecting cash much quicker. And so I would say that was probably one of the biggest challenges when you try to put it into a practical business sense, on top of freeing up the team that will focus on higher value activities. And then even more, just before that, we helped ORS NASCO with their sales order project. And one of the big pieces for ORS NASCO was they actually were directly competing with Amazon in their Medco division, which is an automotive portion of their business. And their customers expected same day delivery. And if they couldn't get same day delivery, they would source elsewhere. And when you get behind on orders, let's say you get an order at 4:45 in the afternoon, and I'm just fatigued. I don't feel like taking this, or I'm in the car and I'll get to it when I get home and you forget. Well, now you have a customer experience impact. So their big value out of our project, and they actually went live pretty quickly and have already decided to onboard more customers. Their biggest value is how do I get these orders entered and booked and ready for shipping same day. So those are two of the most recent projects that come to mind.
Well, thanks, Alex. Those are two really good examples. Here's another really good question. What are the typical reasons that EDI and e-commerce haven't solved the digital order gap?
Yeah, so probably have to separate the two. EDI, look, you can get a good outcome, but the challenge is the effort that it takes to get there. And then it takes the coordination as well. So if you want to do an EDI project, you have to set a team up. So does the other company, and you now are embarking on a multi-month project together to say, let's go work on this project. And it may make sense to do for a handful of customers or vendors, but you get to a point and there's just natural fatigue that sets in. You say, well, we have to move on to something else. I can't be a slave to EDI for the entirety of my business. And especially when you start to trade trading partners out, you fire a customer or a vendor, and now you're re-embarking on that same project. And so I think it's really the manual labor and the time effort and the coordination that it takes to set up EDI, which has been why EDI has always been a great value for the top 10 customers you have. And after that, or top 10 vendors, and after that, there starts to become diminishing returns. So that's the challenge there. And when it comes to EDI, it's the same exact challenge. I mean, I think everyone's a distributor on this call. If your manufacturer said, hey, you have to go to my e-commerce site to place your orders, they'd be forcing you to do duplicate entry because you require through Infor to create a purchase order. So now they're like, well, go to my e-commerce. Okay, so I just created my PO. Now I have to go basically recreate a new PO in your e-commerce site. That's not a great experience. And that's actually doubling my purchasing time that it takes to cut a PO. And so I think it's the same challenge for your customers, right? The ones that are actually creating these, and they don't want to have to change the way that they're sending in orders today. And so EDI has a place, right? I think the key is like, by no means are we saying EDI is not a good outcome. It's great for the right trading partners. Same with e-commerce. E-commerce is great for the right trading partners. But for that middle layer, right? The volume doesn't justify the time it takes, and they're just big enough where they need a PO and they have a formalized email process. How do we solve for that middle layer? And that's really where we focus our time.
That makes a lot of sense. Another one that I've got here is how big is the digital order gap for most companies? And is there kind of an average range?
Yeah. So, James, what's the exact number up to? I can't remember if it's 51% are still manually entered. 51% of orders are still manually entered. We have the latest
I
stuff.
think it's 51. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that could be a mix of phone call, walk-in, and email, right? Every business is a little bit different. But if you just look at a broad-based industry standard, still 51% of transactions are still manually entered. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing that there's still that many manually entered, and with all the errors that come with it, of course. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So one final question I've got here, and we'll wait for some others here as well. Why is the ability to automate validations, conversions, and transformation so important?
Oh, that's a mouthful, Brian. So why why is the ability to run it by me? Sorry.
Yeah. Why is the ability to automate validations, conversions, and transformation so important?
Oh, yeah. So what we consider that to be is business logic, right? Um, and and that has to do with what we call the perfect order, right? Meaning it's the right order on the right products, placed at the right time, to the right place, with the with a perfect invoice as well. So like a perfect flawless order, we call that the perfect order. And if all we did was, and we extract data. I don't know if we've really touched on this, but we extract data off of these PDFs with 100% accuracy, which people always kind of raise their eyebrows and say, "How is that possible?" Well, once you understand the underlying technology, it's actually not that unbelievable. You can actually start to understand it, and it's pretty logical in how we do it. The What really makes automation matter is exactly what you're talking about, the automation of validations and transformations. Because if all we did was extract a customer's PO with 100% accuracy and then push that into Infor, well, you'd have a lot of orders bombing out. orders with the wrong part number, allowing pricing to go through, right? Customer orders a part for $1, but the part's actually $100. A brand new ship to that's not set up in the ERP, right? Unit of measure that doesn't match your unit of measures, which then has downstream impacts of how you're picking it and the pricing that you have on it. So what we find is if we just extracted the data and send it over, we're just now then pushing the labor into the ERP to go clean up and fix those orders there. And so that's where the piece of touchless order processing, so the validation against the ERP, the transformation of the data to basically do an order simulate before we send that order over, that's really where the value is, because now we're eliminating the need to go change these orders to match your data and have data harmonization. And if we conversely move over into the accounts payable piece, needing to validate against the purchase order, right? Your AP invoice against the purchase order. Well, if I just send it over and let it bomb out, like, well, these lines don't match or it partially matches, now I have to go clean all this up. So it's about how do we perfect it before we send it, to make sure that what we're sending is clean, and as much of that should be done through automation as possible. And so now humans are only working in areas where humans are actually needed, which is what we call true exceptions, right? Where you don't want a machine to try to fix a PO that's 90% out of tolerance threshold.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as well. Great. So we'll wait for another couple of questions to come in, but while we're doing that, why don't we cover the promo that you guys have been gracious enough to offer up? So this is actually, I think, a very compelling offer, and I want to thank Conexiom for this as well. So the special offer is 2 months of free service when you commit to 12 months using the Conexiom offering. So we're going to hold that open through the end of April. So you've got 90 days to basically do your evaluation. And if you elect to move forward, you'll get 2 months of free service, which is a tremendous value. And we thank you guys for that. So we'll just wait another couple minutes. But one final comment that I'll make, and I'll ask for any final thoughts from you guys as well. But, it's pretty rare that you find an offering that both increases the efficiency internally to your company, and at the same time also adds to the customer experience. And this obviously does both in a big way. So I think that the webinar today I thought was really well done, and I think those are two huge compelling elements to it. And with that, I'll pass it back to you guys to see if you have any final thoughts.
James, you got anything? I'll close this out if you have anything immediately.
You can close out, Alex. I'm good.
Okay. Well, no. So I just want to thank everyone for attending and joining today. We're super excited about what we're building inside of the Infor community. Am I still sharing? I'm trying to.
You're not, no.
Super excited about what we're building inside of the Infor community. As a company, Infor is actually a bi-weekly meeting we have, and what are we building with Infor? Where can we continue to go deeper on product development with the CSD products and new innovations that they have? So this is a market that we're very, very committed to. And we also think there's a very strong overlap from industry, the right industry mix, with companies that we've already solved problems for as well. So this new partnership with NSA, this is really our launch into into a lot of what we're doing. I mean, we have 40 Infor customers today across different platforms, but the partnership with NSA has been tremendous. We've had such great early traction, and we're excited to continue the process with our partnership with NSA and hopefully with many of the folks of you on this call.
Yeah, we are as well, Alex. Looking very forward to this year with your organization. And one final mention I'll make is both NSA and Conexiom will be at TUG this year, so it'll be upon us before we realize it. But just know that we'll be there, and please take advantage of that promo. Once again, we will be getting out the recorded session to everybody on this call. I personally would like to thank everybody for taking the time out of their day to go ahead and attend, as well as to Alex and James for your time and effort put into the presentation. Thank you, guys, and we'll give you back 15 minutes of your hour here. You have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.